Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. We have finally made it to King David himself. Well, he's not a king yet, not at this point in the story, not in the beginning of the story. But we finally made it to him. And this is like a really, really good point where we start to get, into more verifiable history, if you will. I don't know what you would consider verifiable. David was a real king. You know what I mean? Like that's like a fact. Like him and then like his son, Solomon. Now, I'm not saying that everything in the story is necessarily true, but we're talking from the lens like it is, okay? We're talking from the lens like this is actually true. And we're also talking from the lens that the God in this Bible isn't necessarily who he says he is. So those are our running hypothesis behind our show. Want to get that out of the way for anybody new to this. This is kind of like an alternative Bible study, if you will. Not really. This is my honest opinion on my honest interpretation. You know what I mean? And I'm someone who grew up reading the Bible. So, I'm just speaking from a whole brand new perspective these days, though. So anyways, without further ado, let's get back to where we left off. And where we left off was, let's see, 1 Samuel 15. Okay. And just a little recap. That was the point when, Saul, King Saul, because he's a king now at this point, was commanded. King Saul was commanded by Yahweh and Samuel that he had to kill all the Amalekites, that every single one of them, man, woman, child, even their animals, had to all get killed. And Saul not only leaves some of the good animals alive, but he also brings the king alive. He brings him as a prisoner, but he brings the king alive. But, he killed everyone else. He just left some of the animals alive and brought the king back as a prisoner. And that was enough for Yahweh to be really, really mad. He, really does not like it when you veer off even a little bit from his instructions. Not even a little bit. When he said he wanted every man, woman, child, animal, everything associated with the Amalekites gone, he meant it. He meant it. And unfortunately, for the rest of Saul's life, he would have to face Yahweh's wrath. So that's what happened where we left off. Now, we enter to the point where basically Yahweh, I don't know if Saul quite knows how much he's disliked by Yahweh at this point, but Samuel certainly knows, because Samuel is the one who talks to Yahweh often. And Samuel even grieves. He grieves for Yahweh not liking Saul anymore. It's actual scripture. Here, I'll read it. 1 Samuel 16, verse 1. The Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him as king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and be on your way. I am sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be king." See how callous and cold that is? Samuel's what? Because think about how crazy this actually is. Yahweh was the one who chose Saul to begin with. And it's not like Saul is guilty of being disloyal. He kept some animals alive to bring back to Yahweh. He's brought the king back to Samuel and Yahweh. He thought he was actually doing right. So, you know what I mean? This isn't exactly a high vibrational or emotionally stable being. This being has a very, very fragile ego, and his temper flares up quite a bit. There's not very much goodness to this thing. And he's just basically snap out of it, Samuel, because I need you to go get my new king. And Samuel is grieving over it, and obviously, for obvious reasons. And Samuel's not even the one who chose Saul. You know what I mean? It was Yahweh. But anywho, Samuel does as he's told, because he's essentially a puppet of Yahweh. He gets himself together, and he travels to Bethlehem to go see Jesse. Now, this whole thing happens where Jesse brings out all of his sons one by one, and Samuel's like, no, it's not him, because he's, I guess, telepathically communicating with Yahweh. I'm not really sure, or if Yahweh was there with him. I'm not really sure how that happened. But Yahweh was basically telling him, nope, that's not one. Next. Nope, he's not it either. Next. And they went through most of his sons. more or less Jesse. This would Jesse of Bethlehem. And yeah, Samuel was like, do you have any other kids? Because obviously, like, Yahweh doesn't like any of these. And Jesse says he does. His youngest was tending sheep. And Samuel tells Jesse, we'll send for him. We're not going to sit down. We're not going to go anywhere until we see every single one of your kids. So Jesse goes and sends for his son, David, his youngest son, David. And here, I'll actually read what actually takes place when this encounter occurs. Okay. We're in 1 Samuel 16, verse 12. So he sent for him and had him brought in. He was glowing with health and had a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, rise and anoint him. This is the one. So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. Now that phrase comes up quite a bit in the Old Testament. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him. It comes up like over and over and over and over again. And we always seem to note somewhat of a personality change to follow. I don't know if that's related or not, but maybe we'll do like a whole separate episode where we'll investigate some of these like root words and stuff to actually like really dig into like what they mean, specifically. I know we can't do it on every verse, but like specifically when they talk about stuff like that, because that's very interesting. What does that mean? The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. What does that mean? Like, is that a possession? I'm kind of curious to know. But at any rate, let's continue. Well, while we may not know fully what that phrase means yet, we'll do a deep dive on it in the future, we do know that beginning in verse 14, we start to see the more malevolent side of Yahweh. Like, he's not necessarily hiding the fact that he has some malevolent tricks up his sleeve. Let me read specifically what the Bible says. Again, 1 Samuel 16, verse 14. Now the Spirit of the Lord had departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord tormented him. Now, isn't that interesting? Let me repeat that. Now the Spirit of the Lord departed from him, but while simultaneously another spirit also from the Lord tormented him. So this evil spirit is coming specifically from the Lord, aka Yahweh. Now, I'm not exactly sure why that's necessary. I mean, we get that, like, Yahweh has taken a disliking to Saul, but, like, does he have to, like, torment him like that and, like, unleash, like, evil spirits on him and stuff like that? I don't know. Anyway, let's continue with the story. Another interesting thing to note, we also get mention of, like, a sound therapy. Like, Saul actually sends for his attendants to get someone who knows how to play the lyre, and they were experimenting with sounds as a way to repel, like, these evil spirits. Isn't that interesting? And we were all told that was New Age stuff. Like, what? Well, no, here we are. Even, like, when we're, talking about the Old Testament and the Bible, they use sound therapy to deal with these evil spirits as well. I thought that was interesting. But, so yeah, funny enough, David happens to be, maybe, it sounds like a relatively known lyre player, or lyre, whatever that is, and Saul's servants go get him. So then David kind of works like part-time for Saul. He like plays the lyre, and then it makes I guess the spirit subside from Saul, gives him a little bit of relief, because whenever David wasn't playing, the spirits would come back. So it did provide Saul some relief. That is so messed up, bro. That is so messed up. And all Saul was really guilty of was just trying to, like, overly go above and beyond to please Yahweh. See, Yahweh wasn't interested in that. He's not interested in someone, like, brown-nosing and doing something they weren't asked to do. He wants them to follow every single instruction, step by step by step. And he found it quite frustrating that Saul was going above and beyond. But whatever. Okay, now we start to get, now we're moving on to 1 Samuel chapter 17. We are moving on to David versus Goliath. Yes, the famous story. It needs no introduction or explanation. Not really. Everyone knows this story. But just in case, I'm still going to go through it because it's important through all this. In my opinion, it is. I think it kind of shows us the type of person that David's like kind of becoming ever since the Spirit of Yahweh came upon him. You know what I mean? Okay, anyways. So basically what's going on is the Philistines decide they want to attack Israel, probably because they were just setting up shop in their land. But whatever. They decide they want to attack Israel. Again, big surprise. So they assemble in Judah in a place called Soko. And it was basically like it was a valley in between them. The Philistines were on one hill on one side, and the Israelites were on the other side, basically. And it was kind of like a standoffish kind of thing. It was in the valley of Elah. Now, the Philistines had a giant with them. Now, and by giant, according to the Bible, according to the scripture, he was approximately 9 foot and 9 inches tall. So yeah, that definitely would have been someone extraordinarily tall. Like, I'm not even sure if, I'll have to look that up. I don't know who the tallest recorded person is now, but I doubt it's 9 foot. That's really tall. I would definitely, consider Goliath to be a giant for sure. And interestingly enough, he came from Gath. So yeah, he's a Philistine. Okay, and basically, he would come out and do, like, his strongman thing, like, anyone want to come and fight with me? Huh? You want to fight with me? He said, I'll chat with me, one-on-one, let's go. You're strongest warrior against me, let's go. And, like, they would all get terrified. Saul and his army, they would be terrified. And this kind of standoff kind of went on for 40 days, off and on. Not off and on. It was a continual standoff. Every day he would come out and, spout his stuff. People would be too afraid to fight him. This was going on. Meantime, David's still going back and forth, playing his liar for Saul while this is all going on. But for some reason, waits 40 days to step in. Interesting note. But eventually he does. He's kind of... David, I guess, decides to get curious. Like, what's going on here? Like, who is this thug coming out here challenging everybody? And David's brother, his oldest brother, doesn't like it. I don't think he likes David very much, to be honest with you. Because here's what he says. Here's what he says to David. In 1 Samuel 17, verse 28. When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave our sheep with? Because David had to leave some sheep with someone while he came to find out what was going on. And he said, I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle, didn't you? And David was like, what? What are you talking about? Can't I even speak up for myself? Bro, please, like, stop. You're jumping to conclusions. And apparently whatever David and his brother were talking about was overheard. Gossip spread through the camp and made its way back to Saul. So Saul summoned David because he wanted to know why David was being so cocky and going on and on the way he was. So David, goes back and talks to Saul, to Saul's tent, talks to Saul. And so David goes to Saul's tent and he said, don't you worry about a thing, boss. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to take care of this bully for all of us. And Saul's like, you're crazy, David. Like, he has been he's not only a giant, he is a trained warrior from the time he was young. And you're just basically like a shepherd boy. Like, so stop tripping. But then David makes his case to Saul. And here, I'll read exactly what why he thinks he should be able to go out and fight this over 9 foot, almost 10 foot tall giant. And we're in 1 Samuel 17, verse 34. David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it. I struck it and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair. I struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." So Saul said to David, "All right, go, and the Lord be with you." So he more or less conceded. He did try to put the armor on David, but it was a little too big and gawky, and he wasn't quite used to it. So David's like, "No. I'm going to go out just like I am with my sling and his famous 5 petals." And I don't even think it took 5 petals. I think it only took 1. He basically went toe-to-toe with Goliath. And here, let me give you the conversation they had. Goliath said to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. "Come here," he said, "and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." And David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head." Man, that's a little bit too monologue-ish, David. Just get to the point. Anyways, "This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." Yeah, way too long of a monologue. If Goliath would have, should have just stomped him during that big, long-winded speech. But whatever. He got through it, apparently, and all it took, and when Goliath started coming after David, got his sling out, and he swung it around and around and around, and whoo! Bing! Knocked Goliath out. Now, I don't think it killed him right away, but it definitely knocked him out, and long enough for David to then overcome him, kill him, and take his own sword and cut his head off, like he promised. David's a man of his word. Cut his head off with his sword. Now, this encouraged the Israelites. So, what they often don't say at the end of this David and Goliath story is how the Israelites then overtook the whole entire... It didn't turn into just a one-on-one thing. They weren't simply just slaves. I mean, I'm sure some of them did become slaves, but the Israelites just basically slaughtered them. They slaughtered them and plundered their camp. You know what I mean? I'm sure they did all the things that a bloodthirsty army does. They did all the things. And then David took Goliath's head and took it to Jerusalem. And he took the Philistines' weapons as his own. And then Saul, which is interesting, he acts like Saul. This kind of confuses me, because it's like Saul acts like he doesn't know David. He asked his commander, Abner, he says, "Hey, Abner, whose son is that young man?" And he said, "As surely as you live, your majesty, I do not know." And the king's like, "Find out whose son this young man." How does he not know David? David's the one who's been playing the liar for him to keep the demons from tormenting him. So I thought he knew, well established, who David was at this point. Kind of interesting. But anywho, David, while still holding the head of Goliath, comes, is summoned by Saul, and he lets Saul know that his father's name is Jesse. So, I guess they were formally introduced. Maybe they only knew each other via the liar and David trying to kill Goliath. I'm a little confused. Maybe Saul just thought that David was just such a lowlife that he didn't even ask his name. I mean, that's possible. Maybe he viewed David more or less as a slave or a servant, rather than someone he would take the time to, find out his name. So, I guess that's what it is. Okay, so now, with all that done, finished with the Goliath story, we get to 1 Samuel chapter 18. Now, let me just start reading verse 1, and then we'll start, interpreting it. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. No judgment whatsoever. But why isn't this talked about in church? Like, and this is hardly the only verse where they talk in these terms, and these very intimate, romantic type terms. This is good. This is a whole relationship that David and Jonathan have. I will not be gaslit on this. I've been gaslit my whole life on this very topic. And I will not be gaslit anymore. They were clearly lovers. Let me just go on. Okay. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic, and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. So, basically, because of David and Jonathan's love, David moved out of his family. Saul wouldn't even let David go back home to his family anymore. I don't know if it was because he was scared that David would talk about him and Jonathan's relationship, or I mean, I don't know. I know I've heard preachers argue that it's because of jealousy. I don't think so. I think it's worded the way it is because it's worded the way it is. I think him and Jonathan were lovers. I don't know how else you'd interpret it. But anyways, jealousy was also a part of it, no doubt, because David was a very successful military commander and stuff. And he'd had a lot of military successes. And this did please Saul at first for a while, but apparently there was a chant that really started to get to Saul. And we're in 1 Samuel 18, verse 7. As they danced, they sang, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. And this really pissed Saul off. He did not like the fact that there was a whole song about how David was killing 10 times as many as he was killing. Kind of a weird thing to be jealous of, but he was jealous. They really did not like these Philistines. They really didn't. But anyways, so yeah, Saul doesn't like David for a multitude of reasons, apparently. And it could also be that spirit that Yahweh is consistently letting torment him. I don't know. It could be that too. So let me just read verse 8. Saul was very angry. This refrain displeased him greatly. And he said, he thought, they have credited David with tens of thousands, he thought, but me with only thousands. What more can he get but the whole kingdom? I'm not sure how the author knew what Saul was thinking, unless the author was Saul himself, but I highly doubt that. That seems kind of like bullshit to me, but anywho. But from that point on, Saul kept a close eye on David. And then here we go again. That evil spirit that keeps tormenting poor Saul is back. I'm sorry. I feel so bad for Saul through this whole story. I can't help it. I know he's like a buffoon, but I feel sorry for him. Okay, so verse 10. The next day, an evil spirit from Yahweh came forcefully upon Saul. He was prophesying in his house while David was playing the lyre as he usually did. Saul had a spear in his hand, and he hurled it, saying to himself, I'll pin David to the wall. But David eluded him twice. Saul was afraid of David, because the Lord was with David and had departed from Saul. So he sent David away from him and gave him command over 1,000 men. And David led the troops in their camp. What? Oh my God, he's so flip-floppy. I wish he'd make up his mind. I mean, it sounded like maybe he was fine with David as long as David wasn't too close to him, maybe. I don't know. But because the Lord was apparently with David, he had success in all of these military campaigns. And the more Saul saw how successful David was, the more afraid of David he became. But he still, didn't want to hurt him. He was like, I'm not going to hurt him. But he was afraid of him. Verse 17, Saul said to David, Here is my older daughter Merab. I will give her to you in marriage. Only serve me bravely and fight the battles of the Lord. For Saul said to himself, I will not raise a hand against him. Let the Philistines do that. So he was secretly planning on, okay, I'm going to make you a prince, David. You know what I mean? You can't necessarily marry Jonathan, but you can marry one of my daughters and become a prince. But in order to do that, you're going to have to fight keep fighting these military campaigns for me, more or less. Hoping that eventually one of them would get David killed. Now, David was a little suspicious of this offer because in verse 18, David said to Saul, "Who am I? And what is my family or my clan in Israel that I should become the king's son-in-law?" So, when the time did come for Merab, Saul's daughter, to be given to David, instead, she was given to Adriel of Mahola. So, I'm not sure why he didn't honor that promise. But never fear, because Saul had multiple daughters. He had another daughter named Michal. Now, Michal is the biggest pick-me of the whole. If the Bible had a pick-me contest, Michal would definitely be a contender for sure. Now, Saul's daughter Michal was in love with David. And when they told Saul about it, he was like, okay, well, I'll give her to him, he thought, so that she may be a snare to him, and so that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. So Saul said to David, "Now you have a second opportunity to become my son-in-law." And so Saul ordered his servants to talk to David and say, "Look, the king likes you, and all of his attendants love you, so become his son-in-law. Try again," basically, more or less. But then David said once again, "Who am I? Why would a poor man, why would you want a poor man to become the king's son-in-law?" So his servants go back to Saul and tell him what David said. So then Saul says to David, here in verse 25, Saul replied, "Say to David that the king wants no other price for the bride than 100 Philistine foreskins. Take revenge on his enemies." Like, what? Ew, gross. But yeah. So anyways, this doesn't seem like to be too much to ask according to David. So sure enough, Saul thought this would end up getting David killed. David is successful and brought back 200 Philistine foreskins. Gross. Like, what the hell? But so Saul has no other choice. He honors his word and gives his daughter Michal in marriage to David. And here I'll pick up here on verse 28. I'm in 1 Samuel 18, verse 28. When Saul realized that the Lord was with David and that his daughter Michal loved David, Saul became still more afraid of him, and he remained his enemy the rest of his days. The Philistine commanders continued to go out to battle, and as often as they did, David met with more success than the rest of Saul's officers, and his name started to become well known. Okay. Now we're in 1 Samuel chapter 19, and this is when the relationship between Saul and David really starts to sour. Okay. 1 Samuel chapter 19, verse 1. Saul told his son Jonathan all the attendants to kill David. But obviously, Jonathan wasn't going to do that. He really loved David and warned he warned David, "My father Saul is looking for a chance to kill you. Be on your guard tomorrow morning. Go into hiding and stay there. I will go out and stand with my father in the field where you are, and I'll speak to him about you, and will tell you what I find out." Because Jonathan's starting to get a little worried here. He doesn't want Saul to kill his lover. I mean, he wouldn't do this just for a regular friend. Sorry, guys. He wouldn't just do this just for a regular bro, So Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul, his father, and said to him, "Let not the king do wrong to David. He has not wronged you, and what he has done has benefited you greatly. He took his life in his hands when he killed the Philistine. And the Lord won a great victory for all of Israel. And you saw it and were glad. Why then would you do wrong to an innocent man like David by killing him for no reason?" Saul listened to Jonathan and took this oath: "As surely as the Lord lives, David will not be put to death." Phew, right? Jonathan was relieved. So Jonathan called to David and told him the whole conversation. And he brought him to Saul. And David was with Saul as before. They made up. Everything was supposed to be good, Everything was supposed to be good. But then again, war breaks out again with the Philistines. And here we are in verse 8. Once more war broke out, and David went out and fought the Philistines. He struck them with such force that they fled before him. But of course, whenever David's doing good, Saul starts to do bad. And Yahweh likes to take advantage, and he sends yet another evil spirit on him. I'm on verse 9. But an evil spirit from Yahweh came on Saul as he was sitting in his house with his spear in his hand, and while David was playing the lyre. Saul tried to pin him to the wall with his spear again, but David eluded him, and Saul drove the spear into the wall. And that night, David made good his escape. Yeah, I mean, this is like, the second, maybe third time? I mean, the second, explicit time. He might have secretly tried to kill him other times, but, this is the second time he tried to kill him with a spear. So, I would have taken that seriously, too. Now, Saul decided to send men to David's house and to watch it through the night and to kill him in the morning. I'm not sure how that makes sense. I don't know why they didn't just go in and kill him at night, but whatever. But Michal, his daughter, which is David's wife, was not having it. She wasn't going to let her dad ruin her man. She only waited this long to marry David. She wasn't going to let this happen. So she warned David, "If you don't run for your life tonight, tomorrow you will be killed." So Michal let David down through a window, and he fled out and escaped. Then Michal took an idol, laid it on the bed, and covered it up with a garment, and put some goat's hair on the head. I'm not sure what good that would do. I mean, they would have pretty much, whatever. She really wanted to, save David. But, okay. Verse 14, when Saul sent the men to capture David, Michal said, "Oh, he's ill." But then Saul sent the men back to see David, and he told them, "Bring him up to me in his bed so that I may kill him." But they realized quickly that it was just an idol with some goat's hair. So then Saul was mad at his daughter. He was like, "Why did you deceive me like this? And why did you send my enemy away so that he escaped?" Then Michal told him, "He said to me, 'Let me get away. Why should I kill you?'" I'm assuming that she's trying to tell Saul that David threatened her. I don't know. I guess that's what she meant. So then David pretty much ran all the way to Samuel. Prophet Sam, remember him? The guy from the beginning of the whole story, the one who, that's Samuel. David fled to him and, explained to him everything that had taken place between him and Saul. But word gets back to Saul where David's at, so he sends men to go to Samuel and go get David. And once they show up to Samuel and all of Samuel's prophets, the Bible says they start prophesying. There must be, I can't wait to do this deep dive on the original meaning of all these words, because this must have meant something different than what I'm thinking it means. So anyway, so then Saul sends more men, and they start prophesying, then sends more men, and they start prophesying. Then Saul decides to go himself, and then he starts prophesying. Not only does he start prophesying, he strips down naked, and is laying there naked prophesying, like a crazy man. And that's why it said, apparently, is Saul also among the prophets, because every time he seems to get around them, he starts prophesying. So, anyway, we're now at 1 Samuel chapter 20. Then David fled from Naioth at Ramah and went to Jonathan and asked, "What have I done? What is my crime? How have I wronged your father that he is trying to kill me?" "Never," Jonathan replied. "You are not going to die. Look, my father doesn't do anything, great or small, without letting me know. Why would he hide this from me? It isn't so." But David took an oath and said, "Your father knows very well that I have found favor in your eyes." And he has said to himself, "Jonathan must not know this, or surely he will grieve. Yet as surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, there is only a step between me and death." Jonathan said to David, "Whatever you want me to do, I'll do for you." So David said, "Look, tomorrow is the new moon feast, and I'm supposed to dine with the king. But let me go and hide in the field until the evening of the day after tomorrow. If your father misses me at all, tell him David earnestly asked my permission to hurry to Bethlehem, his hometown, because an annual sacrifice is being made there for his whole clan. If he says very well, then I'm safe. But if he loses his temper, you can be sure that he is determined to harm me." As for you, show kindness to your servant, for you have brought him into a covenant with you before the Lord. If I am guilty, then kill me yourself. Why hand me over to your father?" "Never," Jonathan said once again. I mean, I'm telling you all, they were lovers. They were lovers. Anyways, so David asked, verse 10, "Who will tell me if your father answers you harshly, though?" So Jonathan has an idea. "Come," Jonathan says, "let's go out into the field." So they went together. Then Jonathan said to David, "I swear by the Lord, the God of Israel, that I will surely sound out my father by this time the day after tomorrow. If he is favorably disposed toward you, and doesn't, but meaning he doesn't want to kill you, I will send word." Hold on. I lost my place. Sorry. Okay, I'm in 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 19. "The day after tomorrow, toward the evening, go to the place where you hid when this trouble began, and wait by the stone Ezel. I will shoot 3 arrows to the side of it, as though I were shooting at a target. Then I will send a boy and say, 'Go find the arrows.' If I say to him, 'Look, the arrows are on this side of you, bring them here,' then come, because as surely as the Lord lives, you're safe, and there's no danger. But if I say to the boy, 'Look, the arrows are beyond you,' then you must go, because then you know that you're in danger. And as for the matter you and I discussed, remember, the Lord is witness between you and me forever." Yeah, they were definitely lovers. I won't be gaslit ever again on this matter. Ever again. Now, I'm not judging it. But the Christians who judge the gay community, you need to look at the story of David. Okay. So basically, the new moon feast happens, and then David's absent 2 nights in a row, and Saul asks Jonathan, "Well, where's David at?" And Jonathan tells him that he had to go back to his hometown for an annual sacrifice or whatever have you. And Saul flips out. He is so angry, and he basically tells Jonathan that he's a shame to him, that he's a shame to his mother, to his whole family, and he's like that David has to die because he missed dinner. So obviously that gave Jonathan his answer. So with the coded message signaling system that I just explained that they set up together, Jonathan warned David that he needed to go and he needed to run. He said to the arrow boy, "Go beyond me," which that was the cue that he was in danger. David, though, didn't run away right away. He did give Jonathan a big old hug and a big old embrace before he ran, but he did have to run. They kissed it literally says they kissed each other goodbye. They wept together, but David wept the most. And that Jonathan said to David, I'm in verse 42, chapter 20, verse 42. Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, for we have sworn friendship with each other in the name of the Lord, saying, 'The Lord is witness between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants.'" And then David left, and then Jonathan went back. They went their separate ways. So, it is kind of sad. It's another one of those low vibrational things that Yahweh does consistently. You know what I mean? Relationships form between these people. Yahweh stirs up trouble, stirs up animosity, stirs up jealousy, stirs up envy, all those negative low vibrational emotions. He literally admits to it, freely admits to doing these things. And there's no shame, no remorse for it. He literally chose Saul to be the king. And he planned this whole thing. He chose Saul to be king. Saul tried his best, went above and beyond to please Yahweh. It's not like he was trying to be disrespectful or rebel against Yahweh. He was trying to do what he said. He was even trying to be too much of a Yahweh pleaser, to the point where Yahweh, maybe it got on his nerves, I guess. Like I said, you got to follow his instructions to the T. And then it was enough for him to be to not only not want him to be king anymore, but to constantly torment him with evil spirits that he openly admits to unleashing on him. It's evil. It's mean. But fortunately for David, Saul's kids, Jonathan and Michael, they loved them some David, and they helped David and basically saved his life from Saul and Yahweh. I mean, I don't know. I know the Bible is worded in a way where it seems like he's working with David, but I don't know. Is he? If it's the spirit he put on Saul to kill David, is he really looking out for David's best interest? I mean, I don't know. It's kind of, kind of hypocritical. But anywho, that is it for today. We will finish the rest of 1 Samuel on Sunday. So I'll see you guys then. Yeah, take care.